Welcome. I'm Josh Oosterhof with CallSource. Thanks everyone for joining. This is a panel discussion that we're going to be hosting at the super meeting in October. And this will be a very similar conversation and will be used for those that can attend in person that will be attending virtually.
Thanks, Josh. Hi, everyone. I'm Schiftan, and we are joined today by four amazing panelists. The first is Ryan Houlehan from Arlinghouse, Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Next is Elaine from Golden Rule, Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. We got Dayna Hottle from CNC Heating and Air Conditioning. And we got Elaine Damschen from Mainstream Electric, Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing. We are going to discuss the impact of COVID-19 and how it has affected your call center and what you have learned and changes that you've implemented that you can share with everybody today. We're going to go ahead and jump right in. So first question, Elaine, please tell us how many CSRs you have and how you've had the chance to manage all of them in the call center.
Currently, we have 3 inbound CSRs and 1 outbound CSR. And since COVID, that we have switched our full staff 2 times. It's been an interesting, different kind of challenge for sure. We hadn't been using the color code at Mainstream and not hiring properly for the call center. And so the first staff that had been with us for about a year to get us through the first couple of months of COVID, they did a great job. The personality type was not correct, and slowly one by one they started falling off. And then we have a Nexstar trained general manager who very much used color code, and so she came in, and now we used a temp service to get us through as staff number 2, and in the last 6 weeks I'd say we are having a solid staff with the right color code. So just a lot of pain and frustration, but of our own doing, and we don't know what we don't know until we do.
Elaine, are any of your call handlers working remote, or is everybody in the office?
I think that was, for us, that was part of the demise of the first staff, besides not hiring the right color code, is we had all call takers working from home for about 6 weeks. Then we brought them in for 2, back out, and then went with temp services.
Got it. Thank you.
And now everybody in office.
Awesome. Glad to hear.
Cool. Excellent. Thanks, Elaine. Ryan, similar question for you. So how many CSRs do you guys have? And just talk to us a little bit about how the last 4 or 5 months have been in your guys' call center there.
Yeah, so we've got 5 customer service reps. I had 2 lead CSRs and then 5 CSRs that are taking normal inbound, outbound phone calls. I think the biggest thing for us at first was making the technicians feel comfortable, knowing that we were vetting the calls properly for COVID-19. So the first thing we had to do was we had to spread out our shifts. We were only in the office until 8 p.m. Prior to COVID. And then when COVID hit, we stretched the call center out till 10 p.m. To make sure that if we did have kind of a later call coming in, that we could ask the proper questions to make sure that the technicians were safe. The next thing, as soon as we got the schedule figured out, was getting everybody remote access. And we turned that over a lot. You know, it's kind of funny. Working remotely, it's like, oh, I don't know, it seems big and cumbersome. How are we going to do that for everybody? And then a pandemic hits and you figure it out in a week. And so then everybody's working at home with laptops. And the biggest thing was just trying to find enough laptops for everybody to make sure that they had what they needed. So as soon as we got, the schedules ironed out and everybody kind of fanned out 7 days a week, where, like I said before, we were only open until 8 p.m. and we didn't have anybody in the call center on Sunday. Everything just went to the technicians. So we got a grip on everything, got remote. And I mean, we were probably, I think we were still working remotely up until mid-July.
Wow.
So, I mean, it didn't really make sense to bring everybody back because we were doing so well at working remotely and just making sure that the call board stayed full and we didn't miss any calls. And if we did, make sure we called them back and things like that. So.
Thanks a lot, Ryan. Follow-up question. Did you notice, I guess, with additional items maybe needed or kind of sharing your guys' policies of COVID that the calls went longer? Like as in, hey, maybe your normal calls 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes to book a call, did those go to 5 potentially, or did those not really change much?
I didn't really notice a change in it. I mean, and if it was somewhat subtle. Customers understood, the additional questions that we had to ask for COVID. But I didn't treat that any different than a normal explore with a customer that, might take you down a rabbit hole with asking how old their water heater is, but you're coming out for the kitchen sink. So sometimes that generates more questions in their mind and can make the conversation go a little bit longer as you explore. But I really didn't notice too much of a jump in the call count or call length.
Got it. Thanks. Appreciate it, Ryan. Thanks a lot. Steve, we're going to kick it over to you. If you could just give us kind of lay of the land, number of CSRs you guys have, and then maybe what things have been like over the last 3-4 months.
Yeah, we have 6 CSRs. COVID hit. We had been working on disaster recovery prior to this, and so that helped us out. We were able to work remotely right away. So CSRs were able to take calls from home. We didn't really see a drop off in what we were doing other than just a slight change of the process. They were able to work from personal laptops or computers from home in order to handle the customers calling in. They didn't come back to the office till June 1st. So in June is when we had CSRs come back to the office. It gave us time to create the spacing in the office, keep that social distancing as best as we could for not only the CSRs, but for all of our employees.
Got it.
And I would just say then going forward, some other things that we had to do on the phones is make sure we were following the same process as discussing the PPE, what precautions we were taking, having our techs in their home, and so that when the techs came there, they followed through on that process. So being consistent, that was pretty critical because if they didn't, we definitely heard about it, and so then we were able to address from reviews or when our follow-up calls, we were able to get feedback right back from customers and address it with those individual techs right away.
Awesome. I got to assume that was probably something that was ever changing. Like whose responsibility was it to make sure that the CSRs had the correct information to be, sharing with the homeowner exactly what the technician was going to come with and what those policies were? Was that an ever-changing thing? And was that something that maybe the CSR manager was responsible for? How did that process work?
Actually, just a leadership team. So when this came out, we had conversations to come up with what that might look like. Obviously, looking at CDC guidelines and direction provided out there. Other business partners, what they were doing, get feedback from them. And then that way the message was consistent. And then we sent that out to the entire company and then, had coaching within the CSR since they're the first line interaction with the customers and making sure our websites and everything was consistent.
Got it. One more follow-up for you as well. Thanks for sharing that, Steve. How, I got to assume like in a normal role when everyone's in the office, it's probably quite easy for the dispatch team and the CSR team to communicate. Did that change with people being remote, and did that become more difficult, or was it still through your software and stuff a pretty easy process?
Well, hey, CSRs and DSRs like to clash heads, so it's probably a good thing because they weren't close to each other, and so they had to utilize messaging a lot more, and so that was actually productive, probably more productive than them being in the office where they could get frustrated and vent to other people. So actually, they didn't have anybody else to talk to, so other than themselves. So just through messaging, that actually probably helped out a little bit.
Nice. Thanks for that, Steve. Appreciate it. Awesome. Dayna, would love to hear from you now, if you could, just a breakdown of your guys' CSRs, and again, kind of how the last 4 or 5 months have been for you guys with the impacts of COVID.
Sure. So we have 5 full-time CSRs, as well as other girls in the office taking calls. Detroit got hit really hard early on. So we actually cut our staff for the month of April. Our call count went down 50% from the year prior. Our guys were scared to go on calls. And we really had no one else to follow since, we had the third highest count in the nation. So we were playing really conservative. April was a really rough month. May came around and we brought everyone back in the office. It was back to normal workload at that time. Our girls in the office, we added a call script, explaining to customers what we're doing for our safety procedures, PPE, and I think that's about it. We created a video that we send out before we go out on the call. When we dispatch the guys, it reminds the customers of the CDC protocols that we're completing on that call. And then we just follow up. If the customers have any concerns or anything, we'll spend time with them, explaining to them what we're doing to keep them safe.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. Share a little bit more on the video. I'm interested to hear about that. So you guys created a video that was sent to customers before you went to the homes, or how did that work?
So actually created it in our house. My husband recorded me just explaining what we were doing to keep customers safe, and then we would send that out, with the tech bio, just to make people feel more comfortable and that, we're taking it seriously. Awesome.
Would you mind sharing a little bit as well on that question around dispatch and CSR's communication? Was that all smooth, or was it a little bit difficult for a bit when you guys were all remote?
It was a transition, but we worked out the kinks, and then once we came back on normal schedule, everything was back to normal. So.
Got it. Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much for sharing.
I have a question about accountability. How do you guys measure CSR accountability if they're working remote? Do you guys mind sharing a little bit about how you keep track? Has it changed?
I think call counts is a big one, seeing how many calls they're answering or they're outbounding. So you're just paying attention and holding them accountable.
Call counts is one.
Absolutely.
Okay. Elaine, what about you and accountability? Do you have tools, or did you implement some system internally to keep track of that?
What we found useful for accountability was actually through our Google LSA. We use home and local services for our digital advertising, and they started sharing what our response rate was on how quickly we were answering those Google LSA calls. So the lower our percentage, the less our Google LSA ads would show up. And so as I shared every week what our Google LSA percentages were, those were increasing. And so we used we use that response time.
Great. Got it. Okay, so this is good. I want to lead into the entire panel, starting with you, Elaine, since you brought up that topic. So where do you see the call center's space heading into? Basically, pre-COVID, do you think things are going to stay the same? Is it ever going to go back to normal?
Do you mean with our call center?
Yes. Like, where do you see things heading in the future?
Oh, goodness. I mean, currently we have a call center where we have everyone spaced out 6 feet and taking the precautions that we're supposed to. But I also see that we can be more flexible, and in the future, potentially adding that as a benefit, working from home. Not quite yet for us because we have a brand new call center. So we're just establishing some good.
Got it.
What do you think that timeline is, just out of curiosity? I mean, again, I totally agree. Like, you can't have a CSR working from home that you hired a week ago, right? So is it typically, like, what is your experience? Is it 2 months, 3 months? Like, how long do you feel like you have to have someone in the office where you have confidence that they could possibly work from home?
Oh gosh. I mean, well, we've never done it before until COVID. So, I mean, I'm thinking, a minimum of 3 months up to 6 months at least, just to understand our core values and really the full picture of how we operate. And even if we offered it as a benefit, I mean, be a one day a week. We really just haven't fleshed it out yet.
Got it. Steve, what about yourself? Where do you see the call center heading?
Well, I think just going to your accountability question, and I think that's where I think we were able to utilize CallSource, since we were able to be connected with our phone lines that they were using. They were still recorded, so that we were able to still do some of that training and from that accountability. So for me, working from home and remotely wasn't as big of an issue. Because they're not in the room, so you can't hear them, but you can go back and listen to those calls. In addition, we have CallSource there to help make sure that we're not off base. We're grabbing the good calls, and then CallSource maybe might be grabbing a different call. And so we got a good average and a good mix there. So to me, that was good. I see the call centers going the same direction, where you have that flexibility, trying to meet the employees kind of where they're at, especially we have people working from home. Now going back to school. So here in Iowa, some of the school districts are 100% online. Some of them are 50-50. So just having that flexibility to, you have a great employee, you want to have that flexibility to maintain them as an employee and allow them to, meet the needs of their family as well.
Awesome.
In other ways, of the call center, I see things going towards actually, online booking. So
thank you.
You might not have to pay it from the phone.
That's great. Have your, in general, just for you, Steve, a quick follow-up, what is your CSRs like? Have they been excited to work from home, or is it like, oh, I'd rather be in the office where I have all these resources, or is it like a perk and they're like, oh, it's great, I want to work from home?
Yeah, well, initially, COVID was like, yeah, this is great working from home. And then it was really shortly after, it was like, hey, when can we get back to the office? And so we were kind of keeping them from coming back to the office. Now it's kind of a more of a reward. So we're back in the office. And so they had a taste of working from home. And so now it's allowing that flexibility. So when they do need that, they've got an appointment. Now we can maximize the people that we have answering the phone. If we can allow them to work from home, that's a little additional perk. So, now you're getting employee buy-in to the company and kind of our values.
Thank you. Ryan, what about you in the space? How are things for the call centers?
I definitely think, the words come up several times now with flexibility. This experience with COVID has definitely taught us that we're a lot more flexible and stronger, and we can get through some of these, hardships, I suppose, in the call center. And it's just, they're proving it to themselves. From a recruiting standpoint, I definitely know some of our recent pickups in the call center as we've kind of transitioned some things, promoted some people to various positions, that bringing other people in to continue covering this 7-day work week that we've started. We're going to keep that. And, I've got one of the girls, she's driving like 30 minutes to work, which is really not the big of a deal, but she's got kids, and allowing her to work from home on Saturdays was a big perk for her. So I can see that, continuing as a recruiting piece. On the dispatch side of things, my newer dispatcher, Kathy, she was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years, and she recently got back into the workforce. She had some HVAC and plumbing dispatching experience. So we hired her on, and kids were getting ready to start school. And she came to me and she said, can I work from home this day? And I could say with the utmost confidence that, hey, I can have you do that. Let you be there when the kids, take off for school, and you greet them as they come back. And that was a big deal to her that we were able to work with her and let her do it. And we didn't miss a beat at work either. So that was a big thing.
Touching just really quick as a follow-up there, and Steve kind of tapped on this a little bit just with the accountability piece. I know he had mentioned, obviously, longtime client of CallSource, and you guys have used us for quite some time as well at some different capacities for coaching and scoring. How has, I guess, our tools and analyzing the calls through that integration with ServiceTitan really helped you guys hold them accountable in the office and also obviously outside the office?
Yeah, so from an accountability piece, when I'm, I guess, looking for areas of opportunity where maybe we're missing the beat on something. I mean, I always go to our 3-day call board first. You know, are we 100% booked for tomorrow? Are we 75% the next day and 40% the following day after that? I'm looking at that to see, okay, are we kind of in the realm of where we need to be? And if we're not, if we're a little short in some areas, then I go to touch points. Okay, well, how many touches per hour do we have with our customers? And, you know, we grade touch points on, you know, outbound phone calls, inbound phone calls, and also the SMS text messaging, which we're able to do a lot of, and our customers love that. But just knowing that you just kind of have to break down each one to find out, you know, who is it, where is it, you know, where's the kind of weak link. Having CallSource on the back end and, you know, grading the number of our inbound booking percentage, making sure that that's on point, and then giving us the tools with the service system and Nexstar to kind of hone in on what parts of their calls, you know, need work. And that's just going to increase our booking rate. So that's kind of, I start at the 3-day board, I work down to touch points. And then if the touch points are there and we're still not getting them booked, having that grading on the back end with the service system is just, it's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Dayna, I just want to turn it over to you. Where do you see the call center heading, your current call center, the whole entire space?
So I see it being on site, but having the flexibility to be at home if we need to. I agree with Ryan that, you know, the first thing we look at is our 3-day call board. It's done every day to see, you know, how many calls are we hitting our goal, and then, you know, where are we at for the next 3 days out, so we can, you know, get the girls on the phone if we need to fill the board. If we're hitting our goals, really that's where I stop. And then from there, if it's something off, then we dig a little deeper, go to, you know, what missed calls did we not get? Is there someone we can call outbound to book that call? Kind of go from there.
Got it. I want to touch on the hiring process real quick. Has that changed, or what's the current procedure?
And we're doing interviews on site.
Do you find? Got it. Do you find that it's been more difficult in the current times to hire, or do you think it has become easier because more are working from home or available?
I think for a little bit, it was a little bit harder. People were getting incentive to stay at home. But right now, we have people coming in daily for interviews, so it's been great. We've had a great summer.
Got it. Does anybody want to share on their hiring process or anything going on internally that they found interesting on the hiring side?
I'd like to share that we're in the state of Washington, and a couple times we had people, I think a little bit too soon, come in face to face where we have to wear masks. And so the part that we couldn't see was a person's smile, which now we're saying that's part of our uniform, is an ability to smile. And so we had a really miss there because we just couldn't see facial features. So we ended up going back and doing Zoom for a little while so that we could see their face and their smile.
That's a good point. Thank you. Go ahead.
We've been doing mostly Zoom meetings as well, not in office.
Got it. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, let's go to the wrap ups. Let's go to recommendations for every Nexstar member. So Josh.
Oh, the lessons.
Yeah.
What about the lessons, Steve?
Yeah, lessons. That's exactly
Okay.
right. So what lessons have you learned? What would you recommend every
Cool.
Nexstar member?
Awesome. sorry to do you first again, Elaine. It goes Elaine, Steve, Ryan, and then Dayna, just in my visual here. But if you could just come up with a couple lessons, I guess, that you've learned over the last 6 months that you might, share with another Nexstar member. Hey, we had this happen. Here's my recommendation. Maybe just a couple things that come to mind, and we'll start with you again, Elaine.
About call center specifically?
Correct, yeah.
All of the above.
Call center, all of the above, yeah. If there's just a general business practice as well that you learned during this crazy time, that would be helpful. So,
I would say, can you still see me?
Yeah.
Sorry, I got the dogs barking. Well,
Hold on, Elaine. Oh, hold on. Let's wait till you stop moving.
okay, here we go. The very first thing I would say lesson for us was we really rallied our staff with the global pandemic. Of course, we were an essential business like Nexstar Network. And the very first day, Todd brought our entire staff in and he said, establish mindset. He either said, is COVID gonna beat us or are we gonna beat COVID? Not in those exact terms, but
Right.
That's good.
Anyway, our staff really rallied around us and we just had made the decision that we're not going to allow COVID to take us down. And so we've had the 3 best months we've ever had in business. So I would say mindset first. For us next would be flexibility. We do have 2 dispatchers. We're in Spokane, Washington, but we have 2 dispatchers who work out of Boise. So we have some remote staff members now who are an 8-hour drive south, and that's given us some perspective that I maybe never would have tried before without COVID.
Got it. Thank you.
Ask her a follow-up question with Elaine is ask her about explaining the Nexstar color code and how she would recommend that for other Nexstar members.
Okay.
You got to resay that.
Elaine, do you mind elaborating on the Nexstar color code and how you can help other Nexstar members utilize that system?
Sure. Sorry for the barking dog. We weren't using color code but we gotten away from using color code. And for us, for us, the color that we hired predominantly and we were attracted to was whites. I'm actually a white. And so for me to be attracted to other people or who are similar to me, but I also know that I'm a little bit more advanced and I can shift into red or blue when I'm under pressure and still handle it fine. Where the whites that we hired, we actually had 7 whites in our office, which I think is unusual. And so just with the call volume that we had, just really a lot of stress and difficulty managing that for those people. And so our new staff, for our outbounder, we're focused on someone who's red, who's super results focused. And in the call center itself, our other 3 that we've hired, we have a blend of blues, reds, and yellows.
Got it.
Who handle that higher call volume.
Got it. I want to just ask one more question here from you, Elaine, because you brought up something interesting. You said this has been the best 3 months you have seen business-wise. Why do you think that is?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's a couple things. Number one, it was we established the mindset right off the bat that we weren't going to allow this pandemic to take us down. And so team-wise, we really learned to depend on each other, to do flip leads to each other across the trades. That's really helpful. And number 2, we just chose not to decline on our marketing, and we stayed with the same marketing budget and just didn't back down. And I think in some cases add a little bit more to our budget to keep our name out there for consistency.
Got it. Got it. Steve, Ryan, Dayna, are you guys seeing the same on your end? I've been hearing that from many Nexstar members that COVID, yes, has changed things, but it's been the most amazing months for them and businesses booming. Is that the
Yeah,
same
we
on
had
your
3
end?
record months, June, July, and August. We actually doubled our revenue from last August this August. So we
Wow.
had and I think the reason is people are home. They're not going on vacation, so they're going to invest in their home. And they're seeing the value of what we do. You know, someone that might have not worked from home and didn't realize how hot it was midday is now realizing, hey, I'm not going to work like this. So.
Right.
Totally.
Steve, right?
Yeah, I would say that we have had very solid, very solid year, and have not slowed down over COVID. I like to think of it as exactly what they said, is that people are home, customers are home, but then also then our techs are doing a great job and they're following the process that's been established, and a multitude of those things has been leading to our success.
Awesome. Thank you.
What about you, Ryan?
It's the same for us. I mean, we our call count didn't slow down. I mean, the big thing, we had a pretty warm winter, and so really kind of staying true to the metrics. And as long as I make X amount of outbound phone calls, I'm probably going to book a certain 10 to 20% of those. So if I can just hit those numbers, then I'll get those booked. And if I can get so many opportunities on the board, a certain number of them are going to flip. So, we had to kind of like learn that lesson and stay true to, okay, making 80 outbound phone calls today is just what I have to do. I know I was only used to making 50, but I'm going to make 80 today. And so we had to kind of push through that warm winter. And we kept saying, it's going to, summer's going to come, it's going to get warm, and we're not going to be making so many outbound phone calls. And then the pandemic hit, and we're just like, well, we're just going to keep doing what we've been doing. And we just pushed right through that little time of uncertainty. And every month, maybe not as far as call volume goes, but the profitability piece for us was in check every single month.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Ryan. Going back to our original question, and we got a little bit down a rabbit hole there, but the original question, we'll go back, go to you here, Ryan. 2 lessons that you would just share with other Nexstar members from your guys' experience. Doesn't have to be central to the call center, just in general, that you guys maybe learned over the last 4 or 5 months.
I think one big piece for me, I was listening to a John Maxwell podcast, I think early on. It was one of his first 1 or 2 podcasts after the pandemic really got ramped up. And he talked about uncertainty. And in times of uncertainty, there's a lot of stress, and how that affects, us as leaders, how it affects the team, and all of their emotions. And he talked about creating certainty. And that was I just wondered how I could incorporate that, because I was a technician once, and every day was uncertain when I was going to get home. So if we can create that in the call center and in the dispatch room, that each day is going to be relatively, certain to a degree, it creates a level of comfortability, and that's when you can get repetition in your process and really make contact with every call. So create certainty is the big one. And the other thing is just trusting the numbers, trusting the process, trusting the gauges that you have in front of you, like the 3-day board, or the the inbound booking percentage that we get off of our CallSource board. Just trusting those numbers and coaching consistently from them.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Ryan. Steve, I'd like to kick that over to you as well. Just if you have a couple things that come to mind, just as lessons that you might share with other members.
Yeah, one of the main things is that it's just critical that we communicate, and then even after we think we've communicated the information, that we communicate it again. And we try to communicate it in a variety of ways so we can meet the needs of our employees and our customers, because we're all a little bit different.
Of course.
And,
awesome.
and then secondly is just, disaster recovery plans. So for the company, in all departments. So a lot of times it might be have disaster recovery plans for the company, or you think you have them, but it's really critical that each department has them. So everybody's familiar with them, and then continually improving those. So when you think you've thought of everything, think of those things that you haven't experienced. Just here in Iowa, for example, we had those, no tornadoes, but we had those hurricane force winds that just flattened thousands and thousands of acres of corn and beans and houses and trees. And so definitely impacted people, but you never think about those things because that's not going to happen here. But it's always important to keep thinking about those things that you haven't thought about.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Steve. Dayna, we'll finish this one with you. A couple of things that come to mind that you would share, just some lessons that you guys may have learned over the last 4 or 5 months here.
Sure. I mean, the big one is the validation of what we do, that we're an essential service, and using that for recruitment for, potential employees that, during this pandemic, we weren't shut down, we were still working. And I think that's important for people to see that, what we do is, even for our employees, is essential. And then another one is just flexibility, having things in place if something goes wrong that we can, flip a switch and be working remotely. I think that's really important.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that. Good. All righty. I think we're good. Thank you guys so much. Dayna, Elaine, Steve, and Ryan, really, really appreciate your time and sharing this today. And thank you so much.